Welcome. We're going to take a look at the research process steps. Specifically, we're going to be looking at what are the steps in the research process and how can these steps be used for creating research papers and research projects. So, what is the research process? Research is a process of steps. It takes a researcher from having a question to a completed research project. The research project presents a synthesis of information and the conclusions that come from the data analysis. It's actually several steps in there to get that done. So, first step is that you need to evaluate your prompt and choose a topic. What your prompt is, I'm talking specifically about the directions that you've been given in terms of the assignment to do your research. What you want to choose is a manageable topic, not too broad, not too narrow, somewhere in the middle. The next thing you do is you actually start your research. You start to collect sources, things like articles, interviews, websites that are academic or professional websites. Those are the kinds of things that you're looking for. One thing that's very important is that if your source is not from an expert, you do not want to use it. You only want to use expert sources for all of your research. Okay, now you've collected some sources, so what do? Well, you sit down and read them. And as you're reading them, you need to take notes on those. You can take notes in a variety of different ways. Whichever way works for you is to do those on 3x5 cards or 3-column note taking, or whatever method that you prefer, you can do that. Afterwards, you take a look at all of the information that you've located and you compile what is relevant to your specific topic. You need to take all of those notes now and organize them into an outline or a graphic organizer. It depends upon the specific assignment that you do as to what kind of graphic organizer that you do. Some teachers are very flexible and will let you do any kind of graphic organizer, whereas other teachers, or for particular projects, you'll need to do a specific style of outline. Alright, now you've got all of your information, you've got it organized into a nice graphic organizer. Now what do you do for step 4? So now what you do is you take a look at all of that data that you've collected, all of that information, and you look at where does the research point you. It should point you in a particular direction so that you can write your introductory thesis statement. Now that thesis statement may change over time, that's okay, but your thesis statement needs to be written according to where the research pushes you. You do not write your thesis statement before you start researching. That's backwards. Okay, so now you've got this wealth of information, all of this data that you've collected, and you've got a strong thesis statement that you're working with. So now you need to go ahead and write that draft. Okay, so you start off with your first draft, your rough draft, working on an introduction, a body, and a conclusion paragraphs. You want to make sure that you have a strong thesis statement. All of your body paragraphs should include parenthetical in-text source citations. That's where you're showing where you borrowed your information. And your works cited page is going to be at the very end in MLA format. Now the next step, step 6 here, takes several times to go through, but you edit, correct, and revise, and you'll typically go through that multiple times. I recommend to my students that they go through it at least 3 times. Editing, correcting, and revising. It can take a little bit of time, but it's really worth the effort because that's where you're going to come up with this perfected piece. So here are some specifics on how you might edit. Okay, reading the paper out loud. That can be a fantastic way for you to hear grammatical errors in particular. Giving the paper to someone else to read and for them to edit it. That can be very helpful. Sometimes it's difficult to find our own mistakes, but it's easier to find other people's mistakes. Go through, and if you have any comments from your instructor, read through those. You want to make sure that you're editing, correcting, and revising along the way. And you're always looking to work on this final perfect draft. It may take a few times through before you get it, but that's what you're working towards, is this final perfect draft. After that, you may have some sort of publishing format. You may share it with other students. It may go onto a website. It may be submitted into a magazine. In whatever manner that's appropriate for that particular paper, you may choose to seek out publishing. And you should always celebrate a job well done. Researching is tough work, so you definitely want to celebrate your accomplishment. Best practices in terms of looking at a research process. When you're working on a research paper, make sure that you follow the steps. Don't skip around or skip any of the steps. That can make things really difficult for you. Make sure that you're thorough with each of those steps. Don't skimp through any of them. Make sure you do the whole step to completion, and ask for help when you need it. Don't feel like you're bothering people by not asking for help. It's best to ask. What you should know at this point and be able to do is to understand the research process, know how to apply the steps, and be able to follow the steps and complete a research paper or project on your own. I hope this is useful to your writing. Good luck to you.